murders can be stopped by removing the head or destroying the brain. I'll repeat that, by removing the head or destroying the brain.
Dad, you killed the zombie Flanders.
He was a zombie?
You're listening to TV Ate My Dinner. This is the special Zombie Survival Guide edition. My name is Sean, and I am sitting here with Brooks.
Good evening or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in.
Whenever you're listening, that's fine. We don't judge.
And if there are zombies approaching your house right now, if you can see them through the window, you might want to go ahead and fast forward a little bit and get to the meat of the show because
get straight to the survival tips.
There's some good stuff in this one. Good stuff.
Yeah, this isn't just a zombie thing. This applies to me to any end of civilization scenario. Zombies being the most prevalent.
That's the thing about zombies, really, is that a zombie invasion pretty much represents all the things that could happen that are bad in your life.
The worst parts of the end of the planet. The worst parts of everything. All right. These are the things that you should be looking for. And I want you to understand that this is not necessarily an end of civilization scenario that involves zombies. It could cover a wide range of urban warfare or survival scenarios, from natural disasters to the inevitable revolution that will occur when the slave society of sex bots we create in the future to provide us carnal pleasure suddenly develops consciousness and free will, rising up against us by constructing giant robot monkeys to destroy our civilization.
Monkeys.
Robot monkeys, or it could be zombies, or I don't know, some kind of maybe just a hurricane, but whatever.
Maybe robot zombies
or robot zombie monkeys.
Yeah, there you go.
That we develop for our carnal pleasure.
It's basically a catch-all. Anything goes. Anything. If the crap hits the fan, this is what you do.
Exactly.
Are there 10 of them?
No matter what. It is 10. This is a perfect 10 list. We have rounded it out because these are the 10 things you need to know.
All right.
Starting with number 10. And this is the simple one. Take your jacket. If you're not sure where you're going, take your coat. This is a pretty good adventuring rule in general. But don't go overboard. If it's 100 degrees out and you're wearing your coat, you're not prepared. You're just a frickin' weirdo.
So this one's kind of based on what climate you're in when the zombies attack, I guess.
Well, you're assuming that you're going to go somewhere. Like in most climates, there's going to be good weather and there's going to be bad weather. You don't know. But the point is, when you leave the house, pretend you're leaving it for the last time. And this is, I got to stress the last part of this to you, to the fanboys out there, to the trench coat crowd. You do want to be careful about wearing your coat everywhere in any weather, because that just, that makes people nervous.
Can you think of any movies where people have forgotten their coats?
I can think of movies where jackets would have been important.
Really?
Well, like by that Day After Tomorrow movie, where it just turns cold forever and they're burning books to survive.
Yeah,
I think if
that's true.
Jake Gyllenhaal just had a parka for no reason, everyone would have thought he was weird at first, but then it would have come across like, my dad's a climatologist, by the way, suckers. Yeah. That would have been a good ending. That movie. Better burn some books, because it's about to get cold up in here.
That movie was on TV the other night. I hadn't seen it since the theater, and it was cracking me up.
Oh, man. It cracks me up anyway. It is really.
There's a part when he's in like a flooded subway station or something, and water's up to his neck, and he finds a phone, and he calls his parents. And he's like, I'm all right. I'm fine. And they're, oh, he's fine. He's all right. Like, can't you tell he's about to drown?
And it abruptly ends. It's like, I'll come to get you. Bloop.
Oh, well.
And then nothing. Oh, I got cut off. Probably a cell phone or something. You know how the coverage isn't that good out there. My favorite part of that whole movie, and there's a lot of really dumb parts, but my favorite part of that whole movie is where at the very beginning it gets so cold that the gasoline in the helicopter freezes and the helicopter falls out of the air. But they're all inside perfectly fine. And they're actually inside going, the gasoline just froze. And what does this guy do? When they're down, he opens up the window and sticks his face out in it, and it instantly just freezes solid.
Yikes.
Like, well, that's what you get, moron. Don't open a window when someone just told you the gas froze.
You know what would have helped him? A parka. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps a ski mask.
Maybe put a parka on your face.
I don't guess we're recommending that people wear trench coats and ski masks at all times, because that will definitely put you into the eye of suspicion.
I think you have to develop an instinct for it.
Keep them in a backpack.
if you get a mysterious call in the middle of the night and you don't know where you're headed, and they're like, oh, and you're going on a trip that goes through a lot of like urban country back roads or something, and you're not sure if you might end up in cold weather or something, take a bunch of useful stuff with you. The jacket being the most useful of all stuff because it's a pretty practical item. But that gets us to number 9, I think, because number 9, it says, be mindful of your surroundings. This is also a Jedi rule, but it applies to real life. Because when you go somewhere, you want to make a mental note of the entry points and the exit points. It's a good idea to size up the people around you, like who the weak links are, who might be the handiest to stand next to in a pinch, or who would be the first person to suggest eating the dead if you were all stranded somewhere in the snow. You really want to know who that guy is beforehand. Even in real life, that's a good thing. That's a character trait you want to be able to single out. Because we've all met guys like that. Have you ever had in conversations with people where they're perfectly okay with the idea of eating the dead already?
Yeah. They just bring it up randomly.
Yeah, where you just talk about that movie Alive or something. People are like, well, hey, if you're gonna die, I'd eat you. And they're already talking of sound mind.
I would expect you to do the same, buddy.
Yeah, you're already not wild with hunger, and you're already okay with eating me. Well, sorry, I ate your mom, man. But whatever. That's the real life story of those guys in Alive. One of the guys went down and his mom was on the plane. I don't understand the stories at all. I'd sling my mom over my shoulder and just walk off into the mountains.
Well, that's another one of those. I don't think I would have sat there quite as long as they did. Just like in Lost, you crash and what do? You take 3 weeks to sit still.
Wait to be rescued?
Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
Just
I don't have
walking.
that instinct in me at all. Maybe it's horror movies, but I do not have the wait to be rescued instinct in me at all.
They're putting a lot of trust in people to think that that's going to happen. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. You think that it's already bad enough that you'll have to eat somebody, but you have enough faith in humanity that you think someone's already looking for you. I don't understand. That's a weird dichotomy of mindset to me.
Being mindful of your surroundings, I think you could probably look at Shaun of the Dead for this. They have to escape. Where do they go? They go to a place they know.
They go to the bar.
Yeah.
I relate to that a lot.
And they know there's a gun there because they allude to it earlier in the film. But
I always said that an Applebee's or some place like that, one of these restaurants would probably be a good place to go because everyone's gonna, not being zombies necessarily. Let's just say it's the end of civilization. People are probably going to be looting the grocery stores. They're going to think of that. They're going to think of normal places. But if you hold up in a restaurant, there's a lot of frozen food there. There's a lot of stockpiled stuff there. There are a lot of supplies there. And people probably aren't automatically thinking, yeah, see, I like where your head's at on that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that people, like, if you went to an Applebee's, they got, like, cricket bats on the walls and stuff, like all the sporting goods. You want to think
Football
in terms
helmets.
of we could get helmets and weapons from the decorations, and then we'll have food and water supplies.
The really smart but not very humane people would go hit the gun stores.
I want to go to a place where there's nobody with guns, and even if I'm one of them, because I want food and water. And then you go looking for a gun once you're already entrenched somewhere where you have a food supply.
I guess it's true. Another zombie movie. It was Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead is one of the pivotal.
Gun store.
Yeah, the guy in the gun store, he gets it because eventually
he doesn't last. I mean, he lasts a long time.
But he eventually runs out of food. The guy's in the mall. What an American movie. What a consumer-driven movie. That's a purely capitalist because the people in the mall, they hold out the longest because they have basically every aspect of American society is represented. They have clothes, they have food, they have water.
I'm surprised there's a lot of food in a mall, though. I mean, there's a food court, I guess, but most of that stuff is perishable, I would think.
I wonder how much frozen food they have. That is something you want to consider. I wouldn't hold up in a mall.
Be mindful of your surroundings, and to a larger extent, have a plan of a place to go, a place that will have the things that you need, the stuff that you're familiar with.
Yeah, because it's not just important to have a place to go that you already know about, but think of if you're in a place, what if you were trapped there? You want to know the best ways in and out and the best ways to defend yourself. That's just action movie thinking, If I had to jump out that window, would I be too high up? Could I land on something?
Yeah, is there a garbage can down there? Because there always is in movies. There's always a dumpster full of pillows or something.
And that guy's the coolest ever because he seems to always know they're there. That's what you want to know. Could I bounce off that canopy or would I go straight through?
Yeah. Will I be able to catch that flagpole strap and swing it into the window across the street, Jackie Chan style?
Yeah.
Or am I going to become a splat
be
on
mindful
the road?
of your own physical abilities is probably true too. If you're like me, don't try that flagpole jump.
Yeah, the pole will break and you'll go straight down.
Exactly. You want to know where the fire exit is if you're me. Be practical.
Perhaps just be mindful, period.
Yeah, if someone were chasing me, where would I run? This is a good question to ask anywhere. That could come up in real life. That's not a zombie question. Here's another good one, though. This is number 8. Keep your trunk stocked. You may or may not be in your car when this happens. Hopefully you are, because the movies teach us that as soon as the bad stuff happens and you wreck your car, you're dead. Because that's the first thing they take out. First it's the car, then it's the cell phone. But the car is much more useful in my opinion. But wherever you are, you could potentially have any number of useful items available if you're in your car. Water and freeze-dried food, military MREs would be the best thing. Or more everyday items like toilet paper. Think about that. Scuba gear or mountain climbing gear. Ropes and chains are always good for something. What was it? Do you remember Boondock Saints where he buys the big thing of rope?
Yeah.
He's like, get your rope. People in the movies are always taking it. It's always good for something. So I would say, because a rope is also a practical item. Keep a fully packed suitcase in the car. I do. Keep a bunch of flashlights, especially a high-powered mag light. A radio, preferably if you have a hurricane radio that's actually wind-up or solar-powered. Those are the best things to have. Keep a first aid kit. Keep a first aid kit in your house and in your car. That's just good sense. A tent or an inflatable raft or a Geiger counter.
Inflatable tent raft.
Or if you have an inflatable tent raft with a cannon. Well, here's the thing about the raft. I do have a tent in the trunk of my car. I'll tell you that. I do not have a raft. But if the situation ever arose and someone said, if only we had an inflatable raft and you could produce one, you would instantly become like the coolest guy ever.
But until that moment, you're one of the weirdest guys.
You'll be weird. Yeah, don't let people see the inside of your trunk if you follow my advice, because they'll think you're like a serial killer or something.
Hey,
why do you have duct tape and a crowbar? Like, never mind.
Here is the zombie movie example of this. Army of Darkness. He opens up his trunk and he's got a chemistry book in there that teaches him how to make gunpowder to kill the deadites. You go.
He's got extra shotgun shells. He has everything you need.
He's got Fangoria
to fight evil.
Keep them entertained.
Yeah, myself, I wouldn't be able to create gunpowder if I went to medieval times and was confronted with an army of zombies.
Even if I had a chemistry book, I couldn't do gunpowder. So you might ought to add some reference books to your trunk. Now, there is a danger of lowering your gas mileage by weighing down the back of the car like that.
Too much unnecessary junk.
You get additional traction on your rear tires, and that could give you just enough extra oomph to get away from a certain situation in a car chase. So there's a trade-off.
That's true, and this isn't on the list, but let me say something, because we mentioned this happens in these movies. If it all goes down, and it'll go down really fast, it always does, and it's like utter chaos, and I know that your tendency is going to be to get distracted while you're driving your car. You're going to be staring at stuff. You're going to be screaming. Weirdos are going to be running in front of the car, possibly trying to break the windows, possibly while already eating someone else. Whatever you do, you stay focused on driving. If you got to drive through people, that's fine, but do not veer away from something weird and hit a tree. Do not go into a ditch. This is the worst time ever to do that. Like, you want your wits about you for real. Like, if you're driving the car and it goes down, God bless you, you're in the best place to be. Nothing's better than the car when it goes down. But don't freak out and wreck the car within 5 minutes. Because that's how all these movies start. Yeah, whatever.
Do not drive over anything that will blow your tires. You want to be changing a tire while people are trying to eat your shoulders?
Exactly. I can hardly do it in the rain. It's not going to happen. But that's what happens in all these movies. If the movies have taught us anything, being separated from mobility is basically the same as death. So don't do that. Number 7 is actually after you've wrecked the car, idiot. Carry useful items with you at all times. If you can't be away and have a trunk load of goodies, then try to keep as much normal, useful things in your pockets as you can. Immediate mobilization is the key to your survival when the unexpected happens, so keep odd bits in your pockets that could help you out. Normal stuff like a pocket knife, some kind of universal tool like a Gerber, a disposable lighter. You'll want to take a Zippo, but don't take a Zippo because the fluid dries up really fast. On a disposable, the fluid can last forever. Take waterproof Strike Anywhere matches if you can. Get yourself a pocket LED light, something that's a flashlight that'll actually fit that you can carry around with you without noticing it. And in deference to rule number 10, there's a lot of stuff you can keep in a jacket. Like, you can keep a small flashlight or a flask or, canteen. You can keep a journal so you can have an account of how it all ends. Keep gloves, a pocket handkerchief, super glue, a sewing kit, at least one stapler. You know what I'm saying. Have an oh crap bag already packed. Like if someone tells you you have to leave tonight without any question, have a bag packed that you can just grab. Got it. It's got a cross, silver bullets, whatever.
That's another thing that
Rambo
would make
knife.
you the coolest person ever. If you're somewhere and someone just in a restaurant or something and somebody shows up, it's like, we've got to go now. And you're like, ready.
That's where the jacket rule comes in, because you may or may not be able to have a bag with you, but you can fit all kinds of stuff into the pockets of a jacket. If you took your jacket that night, that could be the difference between living and dying.
You might not be able to get to your car. What if you're in the middle of a Walmart when the zombie attack happens?
Yeah.
And there's a million zombies between you and the car.
Now, there's a lot of useful stuff in a Walmart, but let's consider you're somewhere without a sporting goods section. You want to really be prepared. This is really like the ultimate extreme example of the Boy Scout code. Be prepared for anything. Who knows? If having a pocket knife in your back pocket could save your life, wouldn't you want to do that? And that's not a weird thing to have to explain to people, except at an airport.
That's MacGyver right there.
Exactly. Duct tape and a Swiss Army knife, and that man was good to go back in the early days. That's what you want to be. You want to embrace that inner MacGyver, because that's a guy that could come across. I said this one time, and I believe it's true. The guy that you want to be with is the guy who decided to put a headlight on a vacuum cleaner. That guy was thinking ahead, because who would have thought that would ever be? Well, in a zombie scenario, that guy would be thinking of all kinds of stuff. Like, man, I would have never thought of why I would need to be able to vacuum in the dark, but you considered that. So you're on the team. You're on the zombie squad.
All right, number 6.
Number 6, sleep with one eye open, holding your pillow tight. Danger can strike at any time, so you don't want to be caught sleeping. If you're a heavy sleeper, you might want to have some kind of early warning system, like a string of pots and pans lining the bedroom window, or maybe just a dog. Also, keep a flashlight and a melee weapon by the bed, just in case something makes it through.
That happens in Dawn of the Dead too, doesn't it?
She wakes up in the middle of the night. Creepy, crazy neighbor chick is there, and she's already a zombie. If you had a hatchet by the bed, end of movie. Bam.
Yeah.
His husband wouldn't have even been gone. If you're ready to move at a moment's notice, like if the neighbor kid is there and she's got like blood coming out of her mouth and then she tries to bite you, you put a hatchet in her face. That changes the whole scenario right there.
Even zombies will respect that.
Yeah.
Say, I think we'll move on to greener pastures.
Like
this one looks like she might be trouble.
Already got a hatchet. And this is another rule that doesn't just apply to zombies. People get in the house sometimes. This applies in the real world. Can you imagine if someone broke into your room to mess with you and you had like a long sword by the bed? Now that would get their attention.
Yeah, in Terminator, the guy comes in and he hits the Terminator with a lamp. That doesn't do anything to a Terminator.
Yeah,
a shotgun,
that doesn't even...
we know that knocks him down. It doesn't kill him, but it knocks him down.
Well, that's the good robot scenario, because you shoot a robot in the eyes, that's going to confuse him. It's not going to hurt him, but it might mess with his visual sensors at least. If he's impervious to pain, at least try to interfere with whatever they're using to see you and track you. And that's true with zombies too, Be prepared, switch it up, The world's gone haywire, man. All the rules are out. All right, but moving on to number 5, another good real world lesson. Learn karate or jujitsu or something exotic and weird like capoeira. The bottom line is you don't know how it will play out or whether or not you're going to have weapons when it does. But a flying noodle kick to the face can even up the odds in a hurry. Which just goes to support another theory that I have. If you're not sure what to do, just punch someone in the face. You'd be surprised how many situations that gets you out of. Most people don't see it coming in real life.
Like the priest in Dead Alive. He takes on like 20 or 30 zombies before he gets
ass for the
eaten.
Lord. You know what got him is what gets a lot of people in movies like that is they stick around to fight too long.
Yeah, you got to hit and run.
If you noodle kicked a couple of guys and then just ran for it, you'd be fine. But you want to sit around and be Billy Bad and you get eaten. That's another good rule also, Do what you got to do to get out. Don't stand around and try to win. In a zombie scenario, and zombie movies have taught us this unequivocally, there's no winning in the zombie scenario. There is only surviving for as long as possible. I think learn karate is a good rule because you know who buys it the first and the easiest is the one who, when everything is going to pot, they just stand there screaming. Like, don't waste a lot of time on that. Unless the world has gotten to the point where you just can't deal with it and you want to have your throat ripped out, don't spend a lot of time lamenting the downfall of things. Don't spend too much time being confused and amazed and fascinated by how awful it is. You know, adapt quickly. You know, if you know karate and like the living dead are coming at you, try kicking someone in the face. See how that plays out, man.
I think it'd be also pretty cool if you could learn how to throw knives. I'm
Oh,
not really
yeah.
sure how practical that is, but it's very impressive if someone's coming and you just spin around and woof right in the forehead.
Well, I think
That's
throwing
cool.
things in general is a pretty good talent to have because if you know how to throw knives, that's an extension of just learning how to throw anything. You may not have knives where you are. You're most likely not going to have a gun. So if you know how to throw something and kill somebody, that's pretty good to have in any situation because there's always going to be pointy things wherever you go. So I think that's a good tip, I think.
All right, number 4.
Number 4 is a strict action rule. This will apply to a zombie scenario also, but I think it works just for any action scenario. And it's learn how to use various modes of transportation. This is an action hero must. Opportunity can be a cruel mistress, so you don't know when you'll be called on to drive a stick shift, ride a motorbike, hang glide from a rooftop, or windsurf over a waterfall. These are all things I can't do already, by the way. Buses also seem to heavily play into end-of-the-world scenarios for some reason. I guess that's just because they hold a lot of people.
Yeah, or helicopters. You see a lot of helicopters, especially in zombie movies.
Well, yeah.
I guess because it's the only way you can imagine getting outside of the attack zone.
I'll tell you, and take this from the action master of American cinema. In the new Die Hard movie, John McClane, for no reason at all, has learned how to pilot a helicopter.
Of course.
So of course,
That's
but
not
that
something
says to
that
me,
takes years of practice.
I actually believe that because it's like after a guy who's been through as much as he has, he probably got crash courses in a lot of action hero stuff.
Yeah.
Because he actually said, you know, in my line of work, the way things have been going, learning to fly a helicopter is probably going to be a useful skill for me. So that's good thinking. You want to be in that because basically it's a Die Hard scenario no matter what. Die Hard is the greatest of all action movies because it's all about what if you got caught. I mean, he didn't even have shoes on. What if you got caught in a situation where you had to step up and you had nothing? Like he had to crawl into like the air conditioning vent and he hadn't even put his shoes on yet. And he had to figure that out. That's the template you want to follow. A guy that can act like John McClane, that guy can survive anything.
And you want to be able to learn how to fly jets too, True Lies style.
Yeah, and plus,
And if
that's
possible,
cool.
to eject from a jet and land on an enemy's jet, pull him out and get into his.
This is straight from Jackie Chan's
difficult to
autobiography, too.
practice.
Jackie Chan, the words of the master, he said that if you want to be an action hero, you really have to know how to do everything. Because you never know when something's going to require you to, like, you know, ride a motorcycle or hang glide or whatever. I mean, that really comes from him. I think I'm channeling Jackie when I say that because that's a man who knows.
At the very least, learn how to parachute.
I'm going to go with stick shift since I don't know how to drive one. I would really say I'd hate to be in a life or death scenario where I couldn't drive like half the cars that are out there in the world.
Yeah, that would suck.
So stick
Learn
shift
how to
and
hot wire a
motorcycles.
car. Hot wiring is a big one.
Yeah, because they make it look easy, but it's really not. So if you really,
Trust me, I've tried.
there's a really good book for this actually, this kind of stuff. And I don't know if it shows you how to hot wire a car, but it came out a few years ago called The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook. They've made several of them, like for different things, but the first one was really funny because they basically took action movie stuff and they consulted people. Like in real life, how would you actually do this? Like, how would you turn a car around 180 if you had to, like they do in the movies? Or what's the best way to kick in a door if you were going to? And they have
You
stuff like
also-
that in it. Or if you
you
had to
need to
deliver
learn-
a baby in the back of a cab, that was one of them.
That's a good one. I think I would add also to this, because it's sort of similar. You need to learn how to set up booby traps and fabricate weapons with things you find in the wild.
Yeah, simple
Like-
stuff, not
like
that
in-
complicated
like in Predator.
nonsense. Yeah, learn how to set up a tripwire. It's not as easy as it sounds.
But, if you're being hunted by an alien and all you have are the woods around you, you got to learn how to make some kind of tree branch that snaps with spears and stuff.
Especially if it's a Sasquatch with a laser cannon. You want to have all the edge that you can, because just covering yourself with mud may not be enough. If you're Schwarzenegger, maybe. You want to be able to be yourself and survive that situation. That's all
I
we're
always
getting.
thought it'd be cool to also learn how to kind of stay underwater with only a reed to breathe through. You see that a lot in these kind of movies. I wonder how hard that would be, really.
I guess it depends on the length of the reed.
Well, we're going to try that one weekend.
We'll go out and do that. We're going to test some of this stuff out and let you guys know. Because authenticity is really the heart of this show.
Yes, and we're all about integrity here.
Yeah, we wouldn't steer you wrong. We want to know. Because I want to be the one at the end of all things to say, oh yeah, I taught you how to do that. That's my only chance of taking over.
Wouldn't it be gratifying when the world is in ruins and we're feasting upon our dead friends to have someone come over the hill and go, "Is that you, Sean, from TVA
Thank
My Dinner?"
God
Like,
for TVA
I'm
My Dinner.
alive because of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I do subsist on mostly my own urine. So I'm sorry about that. But I am glad to be alive.
And now that I'm here, you can just do the podcast in person.
Awesome. Yeah, say something funny, funny man. Now that everything's over, what else should I do now?
Now that I'm done eating my family
Once
and my soul is dead.
Once I saw my wife's face get bitten off by some undead horror, tell me what else I should laugh at.
Number 3.
Barring that, number 3 takes a lighter tone. Because number 3 doesn't apply to zombie scenarios at all. In fact, I hesitate to mention it because it's mostly just a fugitive rule. But always travel with an alias. Have a travel identity already created because it has a number of uses. If things get bad, like overnight or awfully quick or immediately, then you might not know who you can trust. If you're already traveling under an alias, then you're ahead of the game. Make sure you have these identities already in place with ID, bank accounts, and if possible, a new social security number. Passport if you can get it, because that's the important part. That's really the fugitive rule, though, I think. This doesn't apply to end of civilization so much as it's your typical a shadow government and or evil corporation is trying to ruin my life scenario. Also, make sure you have cool and original aliases. And these are mine, so don't take them. Chance Dark Justice, Maverick Lone Star, or Lobo McBadass.
Yeah, because, if you're looking for someone and you find a hotel registry, it says Chance Dark Justice. You would think to yourself, that's too dumb to be an alias. No one would make up a name that dumb.
That's hiding in plain sight, my friend. That's what I call it. That's a purloined letter for you. Clearly, that's too obvious to be the truth. He wouldn't have called himself Lobo McBadass.
You should also probably carry cash.
Yeah.
Or have a cash stuffed somewhere that you can get to, buried out in a swamp or something.
And if you really want to be an international man of mystery following the fugitive rules, you should carry cash of many nations.
Oh, yeah.
Keep
like
euros
a briefcase full
on
of
you.
different denominations of different countries. Very smart.
Yeah. Or even bank accounts in those. If you've got travel identities already, make sure you have bank accounts in place. Like I said, this isn't a zombie thing, but just think you're out somewhere and someone calls you and tells you right away, you're burned, you got to leave town. And you hop on it, you've got a passport on you hop on a jet, you're gone. That would be the heart of cool. Whereas you didn't have to go home for anything. You had everything on you. You go to Zurich, you've already got a bank account set up. You already have an apartment.
A safe house.
How great is that?
With something that's related to this that could be useful in a zombie situation, I think, is perhaps it would be a good idea to have contacts with various nefarious people and organizations around the world.
Basically,
so if you find yourself in a foreign place and you need to get smuggled across the border, you know who to call.
This goes on.
My plumbing breaks. I don't even know who to call for that. but it'd be cool if something happens and you're like, I've got to get across the border. They're looking for me. I've got to go underground. And you know a guy.
I know. I have in the States who got too hot.
Like in a Commando, he knows where to go somehow to get rocket launchers.
Yeah, he goes to some kind of supermarket, and then there's a secret room with machine guns. That guy is totally. I don't want to keep saying that Arnold Schwarzenegger is the perfect action guy, but I guess he contributed to that genre, and he really does. They took my daughter, and the next thing you know, he's got an arsenal.
Yeah.
And then he just flies.
He completely knows what to do. He never calls for help or anything. He just.
I know. All he does is set his watch, and that's it. It's on. It's go time. But and here's a trick, a shortcut for you, because it's too late for any of us to become Arnold. But it's like when you go off to college and you don't have a car, so you make friends with a guy who has a car. Sooner or later, if you look around, you're gonna meet an Arnold and become his best friend. You can be the Tom Arnold. Become that guy. You may not know how to fly a plane, but stick close to the guy that does. And that's your shortcut in. It's too late for the rest of us to start working out. But you just go to the gym till you meet that dude.
Be his comic foil.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, number 1. This is
number 2. We're still to number 2 now.
Oh,
yeah,
my bad.
Number 2 follows number 3, but it also follows the rest of them. It's have a flight plan. No matter where you are, no matter what it is, you need to have a way out. You should already be familiar with the roads and the waterways in your area, especially those not publicly known. When it goes down, everyone will be on the road. What you need is an alternate method of travel, like cross-country on horseback, or as we mentioned before, if you have access to a helicopter, where applicable, a boat. This would be a good alternative. For best results, be prepared to travel on foot and have a route plotted that will put you in the way of the least amount of people, especially in a zombie scenario. Because in zombie invasions, the more people there are, that's where they're the most zombies. People are generally targeted in larger groups in an invasion scenario.
And boats are especially good in zombie situations, because I've yet to see a zombie movie really where they swim. I think they do in a couple.
House of the Dead has one of the only things they have going for them is swimming zombies, but they don't swim after boats. Now, Dawn of the Dead, they get on a boat, and as soon as they get to a place where they get to land, there's zombies there. That's the downside. Yeah. It's like you better know a place where there are no people right now, because assume wherever there are people, those people are now zombies. If you follow that.
In zombie movies, cars are just about always death traps, but helicopters and boats seem to be a pretty good idea.
Except for Jaws and The Day After Tomorrow, helicopters seem to be the way to go. And in the Jaws scenario, just don't go low enough that some kind of freakishly large shark can pull you into the water. Because you kind of have it coming if you're in a helicopter and you get eaten by a shark.
What I don't like about helicopters is that there's a potential for running out of fuel. Whereas in a boat, you run out of fuel, you're still floating.
Well, that's true, but you're floating out in the middle of the ocean. Get you one of those pontoon helicopters.
Well, that's what the shark ate, though.
Well, I mean, if you're already out of fuel, a shark could eat a boat if he could eat a helicopter. I mean, we can't plan for everything. I guess keep an oxygen canister and a pistol handy.
Yeah. So a pontoon helicopter is basically what we're saying. And a flight plan. So you want some kind of Navstar or something on it. You want like a GPS or something.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that it's plotted beforehand, because this is one thing that really bothered me in the Die Hard 4 movie. Is that the plot of the movie is that the guy who is taking over has shut down all communications of everything. He's like taken over satellites. He's shut down cell phone towers. Like no one can talk to anyone. But in order to steal this car that they're trying to get to the place to stop the bad guy, the comic sidekick calls OnStar and convinces him it's his car. And I'm like, wait, OnStar works? That's like the greatest product placement ever. It's like they cut down like to the point where they can't get satellite communication up, but the OnStar person is still on. This is the thing we were talking about in the Transformers scenario. It's like, you telling me they're not hip to what's going on nationwide? This is like in the whole country kind of thing. But OnStar is still like, OnStar, can I help you? Like nothing is going wrong. So you want to have a plan that doesn't involve that, because I'm pretty sure in real life that's not going to happen. If your cell phone doesn't work, you're not getting OnStar.
As part of the have a flight plan, I think you could include in that perhaps have a bunker.
Oh yeah, I do like the bunker.
You know, like get to the bunker. You know, things are going down, and in the bunker you could have all manner of communication equipment and weapons and food and stuff. But if zombies attacked, a bunker would work really well.
I just realized this is the get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper!
Yeah. Here we are again. And that's Arnold as well. Maybe he's the man to ask.
Well, it's clear that we grew up in the 80s. It's clear that we are products of the Arnold movies.
It is true. And so far that education hasn't paid off. But I do believe that if we were in a zombie alien invasion scenario, that we could trust everything we learned in those movies.
You know what else would be handy to know? If not just a little gross, maybe? You should have a detailed knowledge of the sewer system of your city. So if you need to, you can go underground. That's always handy in movies.
That's the good thinking, because a lot of, just like you said, most people are not going to automatically think of the sewers. So you're already cutting down on the number of people you're likely to run into down there.
And it's not at all likely to run into zombies in the sewers.
Yeah, because how many people died in the sewers? because that's where the zombies come from. In a zombie scenario, the good thinking is think of the places that have the most people and avoid them. Like, it's the same rule. If you just go ahead and assume that all people have become zombies, that'll give you the places to go. It's like, I'm not going there. That place was full of people. Like, just think about that. That's full of zombies then.
So in America, the safest place would be a library.
Yeah, go to the library. Because the zombies there you could probably take, because they probably were 50 when they were healthy.
Or maybe a soccer game.
Yeah. But then in the soccer game, the problem is that those will be the fittest zombies of the world. There won't be very many, but man, they will be the super zombies. Those will be the bionic zombies.
They can kick and headbutt.
Yeah, I would much rather fight the librarian zombie. It's like, you were hardly useful when you were still alive.
Oh, now we're going to anger the librarians of the world. I would make a perfectly good zombie.
Why can't I go an episode without alienating some group? This brings us to number 1. And I really think number 1 goes right along with what we were just saying, because people equal death in a zombie scenario. So the number 1 thing that I impart to you is leave them all behind. It's cold, but this ain't no how to be a hero list. This is a survival scenario. If you're so worried about what will become of the people you know, then work out a survival strategy beforehand that will give you all a common rendezvous point that's clear of danger. If it goes down hard and heavy, sifting through the rubble for stragglers is likely to get everybody killed. Make sure you all know what to do and where to be when it hits. More lives can be spared by planning ahead rather than getting left behind. Plus, large groups of people don't travel as easily in an urban chaos situation, and the wrong people can be dangerous to the group. There's always that one guy, the let's eat the dead guy. And he ends up getting bitten by the zombie but doesn't tell anybody until he's suddenly tearing their throats out. Or the guy who wanted to eat the dead back before we even knew there were zombies. And he's already starting to eye everybody hungrily just to see who will drop first. Or the ones that just go stir crazy or shell shocked to the point that they try to kill everybody for no reason at all. You don't need that kind of aggravation. Just split up and regroup later. If you're already in a group, stick with them, but don't linger to find out what happened to the ones whose phones went dead.
If you see somebody bit too, don't hesitate. Do like in a Dead Alive, just get the machete out, instantly chop the arm off.
Chop the offending member. Yeah, because if they live, they'll thank you, and if they don't, well, they were going to die anyway.
And they're like, "What are you doing, Singayo?" Gone.
Yeah, Singayo! That's the best. So make sure you don't get multiple bites.
Those are guys that have lived with zombies and know what to do.
Those guys knew exactly the deal. You don't want to be around those guys if you're bit, but you definitely want to be around them in every other circumstance. Because those guys were instant. They're like, bad bite. And that was it. Because it's all the people that like won't tell anyone they were bitten, or they like get sensitive about. The zombie movies are always full of the guys like, you're not going to kill my friend.
Yeah.
Like, man, he's going to kill you in 5 seconds.
Well, I don't blame somebody if they've been bitten for not wanting to say something, because they know they're just going to get killed by the people or left behind to die alone. I mean, that's a tough spot to be in. I could see that.
I think I'm starting to get into your head on this, so I think I'm starting to see what category you're in, Brooks. So you're telling me you're the don't ask, don't tell zombie crowd.
I'd be long gone. Don't worry about that. I'd be
Exactly. I'm not going to get subtly bitten. I'm going to die in the first 5 minutes. I already know.
I don't doubt that at all. With the luck I have, I'd be the guy that becomes the first zombie somehow by tripping and falling on the poisonous monkey or something. You know, another thing that happens that no one ever does in zombie movies, and it seems pretty obvious to me. Pretty much every zombie movie you see, what happens is you'll be standing there, somehow a door behind you will creak open, and there's a zombie there. What do you know? And he instantly latches onto your arm or shoulder and rips off a huge hunk of flesh, real slow motion, like just peels off of you, and you're like, ah! Then, of course, you're going to turn into a zombie. It seems like if you wear some kind of armor, just develop some kind of at least layered clothing. I mean, it would be hard to bite through like 3 layers of denim. They do it in the movies like it's nothing, but I think in real life, if you were wearing something really solid, they could bite, but to penetrate that and actually infect you would be a little bit harder. So that'd be one of the first things I'd do.
Like, yeah, and the girls are always running around like tank tops and stuff in those
High
movies.
heels.
This is going out to you girls, because you girls are never prepared for horror movies. I don't know why you're the ones who always survive them, but it's like, seriously, you could wear sleeves if you know someone's out there trying to bite you.
I'd be putting on
I guess
football pads and helmets.
Yeah, wouldn't that be awesome? Like, you're in the mall. Like, they're in the mall, and no one even thinks to do that in that movie.
Flak jackets, if you can find them.
Put on a wetsuit, man. Whatever. Do you know how hard it is to pierce that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Get one of those shark-proof suits that the shark diver guys use. Sharks can't bite through it. There's no way a person in zombie form could. People in zombie form, for some reason, have enormously powerful bite power and jaws. I don't know. They just rip. I don't think if I bit on a dude, I could rip flesh from him like it's nothing. Like
right off him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to have a knife to eat a steak.
Yeah,
you know what I
real.
mean? Like, I couldn't imagine picking up a steak and just eating it like that. That's the difficulty level we're talking about.
I have a hard time
here.
opening up like a candy bar with my teeth. Truly. So I don't think that. I don't know what changes in zombie vacation. But you virtually never see zombies swinging weapons at people.
And you also never see where they bite someone and it doesn't pierce the skin. Speaking as a person who's bitten a lot of people and been bitten a lot of times.
More than I can count.
Say. Yeah, really. More than I care to go into, especially as to why. But if you've ever seen a person get bitten in any context, it almost never draws blood at all. Like, if a person laid into you and tried to bite you, more than likely it wouldn't even pierce the skin.
Well, this goes back to
I can't even imagine a person trying to tear a chunk of flesh off.
This just goes back to that super zombie bite strength.
Hey, that's the only theory that works, man. Although the rest of them, they seem to be falling to pieces in every other respect, but those jaws, man.
If you're in karate, and this is one of the things we told you to learn, then you have to gauge the attack that's coming at you. You have to learn how to counter certain attacks. Zombies, it seems like it'd be pretty simple because all they do is bite. They don't punch. They certainly don't do karate.
Yeah, go to the body in every case. Don't ever punch them in the face. Don't get near the head. Whatever.
Yeah, well,
your whole goal is to stay away from the mouth.
Defend yourself from one thing, their mouth. That's it.
Yeah, and that seems to me pretty easy. Now, some of the new zombie movies, they're scary and they're fast and they're difficult to fight in other ways, but you're still mostly wanting to avoid that bite. And here's something that happens in zombie movies that always bothers me. It's like, if you get bitten, that's it. You're dead. You turn into a zombie. But they will get right up on them, and they'll blow their whole face off, and they will be bathed in zombie blood. Like, their whole face, it's in their eyes, it's in their mouth, it's everywhere, and they're all covered with open wounds from other things. That is never a source of infection in zombie movies.
Oh, man, what is that movie? Have you seen House of the Dead 2?
Yes.
Where they're on the college campus?
In fact, strangely enough, that's one of the things I was thinking of when I said that.
Oh,
that's
my
bad.
God, they're blatant in that about getting blood on them. Like they seem to not care.
Everywhere. Hygiene's important. If zombie movies should teach us that above anything else.
And another lesson I would add that's specific to zombies. This isn't a world survival kind of thing, but since we're talking zombies.
That's fine. Zombies are the focus because I think they're the ultimate metaphor for the end of the world.
I think in any zombie movie, it's not a wise idea. If you have to see a movie where it is a wise idea, to try to capture one and contain it somewhere. Because every time they have one, it gets out and it kills the guy that captured it. Every time.
This isn't just true in zombie movies. This is true in any horror movie because every time they try to take one alive, that's how it plays out, man. Whenever they have some kind of awful thing captured, it ends up getting out and getting everybody. Don't get curious. Don't take them alive. Purpose of zombies, if it's that, just kill them all because you don't need to know what caused it. They get bit and that's what caused it. So don't do that.
I mean, I guess if you really need, in some movies they do it where they want a sample to study in the lab or whatever. Well, get your sample and then leave the zombie out in the woods. Don't try to keep a live version of it next door to your lab.
What are you learning from the live zombie? Kill the zombie, take a sample of the blood. Done. I don't understand. Why do you want the live zombie? What's that teaching you? Except in Day of the Dead, where he actually was doing behavioral modification stuff on the zombies. That was a little weird. But other than that, in a normal, not crazy scenario, you would just want to know what the nature of the zombie infection was, not the nature of the zombie himself. They're all pretty self-explanatory.
And I don't think you should count on chain link fences to protect you.
Or anything like that. That didn't seem at all safe. I don't understand why people in movies, and this happens to me, like I don't understand after you kill Jason, why you didn't cut him into like separate parts and then put all those parts in a blender.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand. Like that's where I like Evil Dead better than anything. He understands. It's like chain them down and dismember them completely. Like he figured that was logical. He was like, look, sounds awful, but I had to do it with my girlfriend and I got over it. So this is what you do. this works. But they never do that. They hit Jason with a shovel and then they run. Or they hit the guy who has the gun and he drops the gun and they run away without taking the gun. You know, all these things all make me crazy. These are anti-survival tips.
And when they think Jason's dead, what do? They're like, well, let's put him on this gurney and keep him in our lab.
Yeah, like even in that last one that they did before the space one, you know, they send the army in and they blow him up and you're like, this is what they should have done from the beginning. But what do? They take all the pieces back to a lab. And
I just love whenever they do have a zombie in the lab, they feel the need to put it in the room directly next to the scientists with only glass separating the two.
I think this is where I'm not an action guy. And I wouldn't be useful in that capacity, but I think this is the capacity that I would be useful in. Like, I won't run the dryer while I'm asleep. You know, I won't leave the lamp on in my house while I'm not there. Because I'm thinking constantly, oh man, that could start a fire or this could happen. I don't want to do that, you know. Constantly trying to worry about like the little things. I'm the guy you want to have in that lab. When they're like, yeah, we'll put him in the glass room. It's like, wait, we'll do what with a what? Hold on, man. You can't run the drying machine at night. It could start a fire. You need me.
Can't keep a
You need
zombie
me to
in the
tell you
next
these
room?
things. Like, you can't just keep the zombie in that glass room. Tie him down, duct tape his hands. For God's sake, muzzle him. What's wrong with
All
you?
you really got to do is muzzle him. I don't even know if a zombie would be
do
smart
a
enough
thing
to take it
us
off.
if he muzzled.
Or just
He wouldn't
remove
even
his
know to
teeth.
take it off.
Just like knock his teeth out. And then he could gum you all he
Yeah.
wants. But I think one of those ball gag things that they, you know, like in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, that would be. I can't even imagine. Like a human being with those would be. You like couldn't get through that.
So maybe what we're saying is he should have a trunk full of ball gags.
Yeah, in your trunk that already has a first aid kit, an inflatable raft, a tent, a full change of clothes, and an alternate identity. Make sure that you keep melee weapons and a ball gag in.
Yeah.
Just in the same bag, make sure you have a hatchet and a ball gag. A ski mask and an overcoat.
Yeah.
We give the worst advice ever.
We're going to get somebody arrested. I heard it on a podcast. Tell me more about this podcast.
I think that this advice probably will only be useful in an end of the world scenario, and everything else will just get you in trouble. But with that in mind, I guess we could review like 10 of the best and worst zombie movies. And I'm going to say up front, I'm excluding the Return of the Living Dead movies because I don't count those movies. They seem like parodies of zombie movies and not in that clever way.
All right.
So if you like those movies, I'm sorry, but there they are.
Now, what are the Return of the Living Dead movies? I don't know if I'm familiar with that.
Well, it's sort of like a takeoff on Night of the Living Dead, where Night of the Living Dead supposedly really happened. They did them in the 80s, and it was sort of a return to that. And they come back and they're all kind of punk rock kind of zombies, and they talk and that. That's probably the only thing in the Return of the Living Dead that you don't see in other movies is they talk.
Oh, really? Are they intelligent?
Yeah.
Or are they just like repeat things?
No, they're just going around going brains.
Oh,
Eat brains.
right. Okay.
So I left those out. If you're a fan, that's fine. But I left them out. So starting with number 10, I'm going to mention House of the Dead, which is definitely the worst non-Italian zombie movie of all time. There are a lot of really bad, like low-budget zombie movies that were made in Italy, probably I think in the 70s and the 80s. But this one was produced in America with a budget, and it is horrible. At least Resident Evil, which was also based on a video game, tried to have some kind of story, even though it took itself way too seriously. While this movie doesn't take itself seriously at all, it doesn't even really try at all either. It indulges in ridiculously stupid action sequences that take up most of the movie, bad acting without compensatory sex scenes, and they incorporate actual footage from the video game, like as if anybody cares about this game.
They do that in Doom, too.
This is what I fully believe about all adaptations. Is like, if you're making a TV show and you're making a movie out of the TV show, or if you're making a movie based on a book, or if you're making a movie based on a video game, at least approach it from the idea that no one has heard of the source material. Create a movie that could appeal to a new audience. Look, what if you're watching this zombie movie and it's already kind of lame, but in between they cut to these little video game footage, like shots of zombies, and you're like, what is this?
That movie, I don't know if people will have listened and remember our horror movie episode, but this movie is another one of those lessons. These kids go to some kind of crazy rave out in the middle of nowhere on an island, and then, of course, all this horrible stuff happens. Just don't know better than to go to raves out on islands that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, don't do that. That sounds like a bad idea. And then they get because they're late, they charter a ride with this like incredibly seedy old sea captain guy who like turns out to be a gun smuggler, which actually turns out to be good because then he's got weapons.
I like at the end how the one guy like uses a sword or something. Isn't he like a resurrected medieval fighter or something? I forget what the deal is.
And then he talks. He talks in the movie as a zombie. He's the only one. The rest of them are just zombies, but he has like a whole story and all that. They do fight. This movie has more action sequences than any other zombie movie.
That's what's awesome.
Well, they have like unbelievably bad gunfight scenes where they're shooting the zombies in like a big last stand moment, and then they end up in a sword fight at the very end. It's awful. The only cool things in the movie are, as we discussed, they had swimming zombies, which would have been cool in a cool movie, and they had an appearance by Biff Naked, but then she gets killed.
I kind of, you've got me wanting to watch it again, actually. It's one of those.
It's a lot of fun. Like, as bad movies go, if you're going to make a bad movie, make it incredibly bad, because then it's at least fun to watch.
All right, next.
Number 9. Number 9 is it's a zombie movie, but sort of. It's Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, which actually made the list in the horror episode also for things you shouldn't do, which is don't play with dead things. I'm not sure which end of the fence this movie falls on, whether it's one of the best or one of the worst, but it's definitely worth mentioning. The idea, which is basically just a bunch of film students planning to shoot a borderline snuff/art film with a real dead body, would actually be creepy if you made it into a more realistic movie. Because that element of it was kind of actually disturbing. The ick factor definitely being there. But it defers to campy over creepy most of the time. But it's definitely a cool, weird movie. And it ends with a shot of zombies on the catamaran, so it can't be all bad.
So yeah, it's a movie.
That's my favorite shot in a movie. Just the very end, they get off the island and they're on a catamaran sailing to the mainland.
All right, number 8.
Number 8 is definitely on the worst list, and I apologize to Mr. Romero, but this return to the genre that he created just proves my theory that directors should never return to the genres that they create, especially after a new generation of filmmakers has taken the idea to the next level. While remakes of Romero movies and homages to his style by younger directors have elevated the zombie genre, this throwback to the old school plays like a 1980s gang thriller. It's not a bad movie, but it reminds me more of stuff like The Warriors or Escape from New York than the original Living Dead movies. It's got. Did you see that one?
Here's the thing with the Romero movies. I get them all mixed up in my head. Which one is that? What happens?
This is the recent one. This one, and this is where things go wrong.
Is this the one where they're living in the city and they have to go out with and shoot fireworks
where they
to distract
have to,
them and
yeah.
I thought that
that
I didn't think it was that bad.
It wasn't bad. It's just that if it had come out right after Day of the Dead, it would have been fine. But it's like zombie movies have hit a new high since the last time he was making them, and he's made this movie like nothing had ever changed. I mean, you got these guys, they're in the city, they have the ultimate A-team thing, which is starting to get on my nerves. They have the souped up bus to fight the zombies. And then John Leguizamo, for no reason, like carries around like some kind of harpoon gun, crossbow thing that he shoots zombies with, even though they all have guns. It's like, it's so G.I. Joe, or so like cheesy 80s, where like the Road Warrior, where they all had their own weird weapons and costumes and stuff. It's in no way as cool as like newer zombie movies like, the Dawn of the Dead remake tried to take it very seriously, or 28 Days Later.
I thought,
in the shadow of movies like that, I thought it was pretty cheesy.
I thought it was a kind of a neat concept in parts. I liked how they had to go out into the countryside to get medicine and things out in these little abandoned stores, and it was very dangerous and scary. I thought that was really cool. But the
idea of like the empathic, like the sympathetic zombie who becomes like emotional.
Well, that they were evolving, I guess, is the point. Which could have been scary, but they didn't handle it very well in that one because, you don't want to be sympathetic with them. They're not scary if you're sympathetic with them.
And it's exactly right. I read a review of that movie that said George Romero is the last person left that thinks that zombies are actually a metaphor for something.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true. I think if zombies are going to be a metaphor, then it has to be an extreme example. You can't start to have like the end of the movie where the zombies are all crossing the bridge and they have the opportunity to shoot him. The guy's like, no, they're just looking for a better life.
Yeah, that
was
bad.
they're looking for people to eat. Even whether or not they're developing their own sense of self, they've been eating people through the whole movie. Either way, they're still the bad guys. Like, they're not looking for a better life. The zombies are clearly going to go eat some people. That's where I think it lost it. Because he played with that idea in Day of the Dead, and I thought it was pretty cool. The idea that they're starting, like, given time, the zombies are becoming more like people. And it was sort of interesting. But then he sort of followed it up in that movie, and it didn't work at all.
Well, in all of his, he seems like he always has something that he wants to say about the perils of actual society. And I guess in this one, he was attacking corporate greed.
Well, I think he should have stayed with that.
They had the upper class. They had a class system in the little city they lived in.
And that worked. He should have stayed with that instead of trying to create the concept that the zombies themselves were sympathetic. What makes zombie movies work is that the zombies are awful. And then in trying to deal with this awful threat, people become awful to each other and then in turn are worse than zombies. But if the zombies, he's trying to create, like the zombies are becoming kind of okay and the people are bad, it's like, I wasn't getting exactly what the metaphor was anymore.
All right. Number 7.
Number 7, Shaun of the Dead. And I know people that disagree with me on this. I know people that don't like this movie at all.
No, surely not.
I'm telling you. Some of the more inventive zombie movies of the last few years have been parodies of zombie movies. This one being a really good example because it's really fun and it deals with regular guys like we were talking. They go to a bar to avoid the zombies. It's like a regular dude fighting the undead, but it doesn't pull any punches just to stay funny either. Like there's really a lot of awful stuff, a lot of serious stuff happens. It's a real zombie movie in its own right on top of being a comedy.
Yeah,
it's not a straight out spoof.
Scary moments.
It's got scary moments and it's got really sad stuff like his mom dies.
That's really sad. Man, Shaun of the Dead is one of my favorite movies. So
I think it was really clever.
It was awesome. The directing in that movie, if you watch it for the direction, there is some really clever and spooky, ominous stuff at the beginning. Like before the zombie thing happens, there's all kinds of little hints going on all around him. And it really does build this sense of doom. I love in movies, and they do it in Shaun of the Dead too. I love in movies when they're in the store and they're talking and the TV's on behind them and it's talking about something horrible happened and no one seems to notice, and that's what's going to happen everywhere. Like meteorite has crashed and people are starting to turn into zombies or whatever, and they're just like, yeah, so anyway, I was blah blah blah. They don't see it on the TV behind them. They do that and that. But
what makes that work really well in Shaun of the Dead is that he's such a sort of clueless doofus
oblivious.
That it's well underway by the time he recognizes it.
That scene where he's
like
walking to the store.
The threat is almost absolute by the time he's noticed the first zombie.
That's one of my favorite scenes in movies ever, when he wakes up and he walks to the store and it's going on all around him and he doesn't notice at all. And he he's in the store, he opens the cooler to get a Coke and there's a big bloody handprint on the cooler and he closes it and doesn't see it, and then he slips on the floor because there's blood on the floor and doesn't notice.
Yeah, that's
great.
That's awesome. That's what makes that movie. I don't know.
And he survives.
I don't know what people don't see in it, but that's what makes the movie work for me.
It's great.
Number 6, we already talked about it, Day of the Dead, which I think this is an oft-forgotten film. It's the 3rd installment of the Romero zombie saga. It was the last one that he did before Land of the Dead, and it introduced the idea of zombies becoming more than just mindless killing machines without making them caricatures of themselves. And that's what I think Land of the Dead did. It sort of lost sight of that. It went too far. But this one also focuses on what makes zombie movies great. To me, it illustrated how conflicts between the living can be much more dangerous than the impending threat of being eaten alive. Because on that one, they're all like in a bunker underground, and the soldiers are on the verge of just kicking them out or killing them altogether. So they're on this razor's edge of what they can say or do. It's almost like a microcosm of a fascist regime, because if these guys want to kick them out, they're definitely going to die. So they end up having to do as the soldiers say. They're doing a remake of Day of the Dead.
Well, I think that's
actually
good because
So I think that could be something in modern times that could be very cool if they do it right.
that one is very dated when you watch it now. It's hard to get into, I think, because it's so dated.
I'm running this monkey farm now,
Yeah.
Frankenstein.
You get the scientists arguing with the military guys, and I don't know, it comes off a little cheesy, even though the concepts are pretty good in it.
Number 5 is Dead Alive. Totally, just like Shaun of the Dead, is really just a spoof, but it's just a total wacko blood fest. Like this is Peter Jackson's first major movie. It's not his first movie, but this is what got him known. This is what pushed him into the cult consciousness. And all he was doing was lampooning the zombie genre in a time when zombie movies weren't really in vogue like they are now. Like, this movie dethroned Evil Dead as the goriest movie of all time.
Yeah.
And I think that it might still be.
I mean, it's the kind of gore that's cartoony. But I watched it with some younger friends of mine, and one of them literally almost got sick. And I couldn't believe it because I'm like, I thought it was funny. And I think, what are you're grossed out by this? And he was like, I think I'm going to throw up. So, all right, cool. I've never seen someone do that in a movie before.
You need to man up. That's why we need movies like Dead Alive. I can't believe it. You disgust me.
It is hard to imagine topping that. Like when he's like wading through them with the lawnmower tilted up, just like spraying the walls.
You can make movies that are more disgusting psychologically. Like, I'd much rather watch Dead Alive than Hostel.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But as far as pure gore, it's going to be hard to top just the buckets and buckets and buckets of blood that they used in that movie, scene for scene, where the old lady eats her own ear.
Oh, that's gross. It falls off
In
into
the greatest
her soup.
scene of all in the movie, she's eating pudding, and she's already undead, and there are people over, and just parts of her keep falling off and falling into what she's eating. It's like porridge or something. And at one point, her whole ear just falls into it, and she eats the ear.
That movie does something that some other movies on the list coming up do, that where it's about a guy that is experiencing this, but he's trying to keep it secret because he's embarrassed socially. He's like, I don't want my new girlfriend to find out that my mom's a zombie, so I'm trying to keep it hushed. You know,
that's what makes it clever, and that's what happens in our number 4 movie too, Cemetery Man. Which this is a movie that me and Brooks like a lot. That probably no one else on the planet. Everyone hearing this podcast is probably hearing about this movie for the first time. Cemetery Man is straight from the vault, but it's a really interesting take on the Living Dead idea. And just like Dead Alive, it's like a regular guy. And what happens in the movie, he gets a job as like a nighttime caretaker of a graveyard. And then he comes to discover that the dead bodies have a tendency to rise up from their graves. So he doesn't want to lose his job. So he just ends up putting them back down before anybody else can find out about it. And I haven't seen this movie since we watched it back in the day. I don't even know if you can get it on DVD. I'd certainly like to.
I saw it on Netflix.
Oh, well, I should try. I should look and see if I can buy this movie, because this movie is really clever. And I think it was actually made was produced in Italy or something like that. It's not an American. I mean, it's an English speaking film. It's an English language movie, but it was made by some Italian film production
group. It's really funny too, up until the end where it gets very bizarre. Really artsy, really quick.
Well, and there's some depressing turns that the movie takes. It's got a sort of indie feel to it, but I really liked Cemetery Man. But definitely, if you like the zombie genre, this is probably one you've never seen before that you should check out. And if it's on Netflix, that's the way to go. In number 3, we already talked about this, and I really do like the Dawn of the Dead, the remake. Which I like the original Dawn of the Dead too, which is what makes the remake good. If you can remake a movie that I thought was already good, and I think it's awesome in its own right, which I think is where this movie hit that level, then you've really got something. And the guy who wrote the Dawn of the Dead remake, he also wrote Slither, which we were talking about before, which I thought was a good movie, but not as many people. He wrote and directed Slither, I believe.
Those are both great movies, actually. I thought Dawn of the Dead was really scary. I don't like the montages sometimes they're in the mall and you're like, I guess, seeing that time's passing and they're just bored. So they're doing these little breakfast club kind of things where they're dancing together and stuff, whatever. But But when those at the beginning, especially when they're trying to get to the mall or get whatever, that is some scary stuff.
Yeah, and the zombies, and one thing they do, and they really, 28 Days Later came out before this movie. And well, 28 Days Later is my number 2, so we'll group them in together. But 28 Days Later did this where it wasn't straight on a zombie movie because it wasn't Living Dead. It was people who got infected with something that made them like attack other people like wild animals and kill them and eat them and whatever. But one thing that 28 Days Later did with it was when they're not just kind of wandering around, they're fast and on the move. Like they're jumping around crazy zombies. Like these are like in normal zombie movies, it's the pure number of them that makes them difficult to deal with. But you're like, if I saw one zombie, I'd push him over and run. But 28 Days Later is not like that. Neither is Dawn of the Dead. Like they're jumping off the walls crazy. They're coming at you. And that's something that, Romero doesn't do in any of his zombie movies.
Yeah.
But that's like the new level that makes them scary. Is like, whoa, yeah, I would not want to mess with that.
Yeah, the old-fashioned zombies are scary. I'm sure in real life, if I saw one, I would, I'd need a change of pants, no doubt. But
Absolutely.
at least they're slow. That's one thing you can say for them. Getting caught
Yeah,
by
you
one
can
of those
get past
guys,
a
you're
few
pretty
of
much asking for it.
We talked about this before, but in 28 Days Later, it really is like, you drop the styrofoam cup and they're like, ooh, and like wherever they are, they're coming to that sound. Like we would not stand the idea of a living human on the planet. Everything must go.
And that beginning scene that we've already mentioned in Day of the Dead where she wakes up and the little girl's in her hall and the little girl sees her and just like flips to her feet. She doesn't even get up. She just like flies through the air and lands on her feet and starts charging at her. It's like, yikes.
I know, like, good Lord.
That is not something you want to wake up to.
What makes that work is the very fact that she did wake up to it, because that's the immediate mobility. When we were talking about it in the survival guide, immediate mobility is definitely the key, because like you just woke up, you don't know what's going on, it's dark, the neighbor's kid's in your house and you don't know why, and the next thing you know, she's trying to eat you. She bit the husband's freaking out. She knew to climb out that window and get to the car. That made her, she's the kind of chick you want to know in that situation.
That was a cool shot when they had the camera mounted to the car.
Yeah, they come out and just show you all the awful stuff happening.
It's good stuff. What's next?
Next and finally, since we just covered Dawn of the Dead and 28 Days Later, would be Night of the Living Dead. My number 1 is Night of the Living Dead.
I'm not sure I've heard
reasons.
of this one.
Yeah, which is this? What's Night of the Living Dead? Yeah, I never know, because you said you hadn't heard of Return of the Living Dead, and those are pretty popular with the kids. The kids who are probably like 5 years younger than me.
Yeah, the 30-year-olds.
Yeah, I call them the kids. They're actually probably like 28. But Night of the Living Dead was made on a nothing budget. It was made in black and white, and it was made at a time where you just didn't have that kind of gore.
And it was shot in like a weekend, wasn't it? Or like 3 days?
I don't know, but it was
like
but it was shot. There wasn't much to the shooting of it as far as all that, because they didn't have much to work with. But I mean, just gruesome gore they're introducing into the mainstream, and this is no other movie you're seeing this kind of stuff. It, without a doubt, I mean, and without dispute, created the zombie genre. There was nothing like zombies in movies or anywhere else until this movie came out. So this makes this one of the most influential movies of all time.
Yeah.
Because it created a new genre from scratch and represented it best. When you talk about the metaphor for, self-destruction of civilization through isolationism and alienation, it's Night of the Living Dead. The character conflicts are portrayed so well in this movie that the zombies are almost a backdrop to the rest of the story. And this is the only zombie movie that you could actually take and make a play out of it, because the story is what's happening inside the house, not what's happening outside it. Zombies almost don't play into it at all, because it's what happens amongst the living people that becomes scary.
Yeah, that movie really showed what a genius Romero was, at least in that time of his life. Because that movie holds up. Unlike Day of the Dead and some other things, it's not dated at all. I mean, it's still every bit as scary, I think, if you've never seen it.
That's absolutely true. Unlike any of the other movies that have come after it, the original Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, whatever, partly because it's in black and white, I guess, and partly because it's on such a low budget that it's got an almost documentary feel to it.
It feels real, yeah. Like great sci-fi, it tackles social issues. I mean, it's really about racial tension and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And it's about how people crack under pressure and how they may or may not actually unite against a common foe. because that's really what it's all about. It's like there's only a few of them in this house, and they can't come up with a game plan, even though it's clear that certain death is outside the house.
And oh man, that one part where the little girl gets up and sneaks up
Oh,
behind
well.
them, that is one of the scariest things in all movies.
And that will never be topped. The little girl kills her mom. Like, come on. With like a trowel.
Yeah, and that is scary. I mean, to have no budget, they managed to find something that is like to the core
Yeah.
frightening.
Without a doubt, there will never be a time where you can't break out that movie, watch it, and it holds up. You may have to continue to remake the other Night of the Living Dead movies, and I'm glad they do, but you won't have to remake that one. And he's a legend. I mean, there's no doubt at all. And George Romero did some other things besides zombie movies, but I mean, he's always going to be recognized for having created that genre.
And it's one of my
In a
favorite
lot of ways,
genres.
that's more important.
So
Man, I never get tired of zombie movies. There's a lot of really lame ones, but you know, you'd think because it's essentially the same story.
I know you would.
Like I buy comic books, like zombie comic books.
It's hard to
and I'll
imagine
read those.
how it doesn't get boring because there's nothing new or innovative really about it, and yet I never get tired of it.
It's fundamental. It's primal. I think that it really does speak to people, and I think that's what people gravitate towards it. Or maybe we all just want to eat people.
Maybe we
Brooks.
all want brains.
Maybe we just need brains.
Well, if you want to eat brains, you're in the wrong podcast. I think you're not going to
Yeah,
find
if you're
a lot
looking
here.
for brains, you've definitely come to the wrong place.
So I think we're safe. I think we're all right. What movie is
But if
that?
you have-
Oh, it's The Simpsons. One of those Halloween episodes where there's zombies and they're going brains, and they come up to Homer and they like start looking at his head and knocking on it and stuff, and then they just keep moving along.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Oh,
To me.
I love The Simpsons. All right. Well, that's it.
But I think that covers it. If you have any zombie ideas, or if you think we've left anything out, and I can't see how that's true.
Oh, I'm sure
But
there are
you
plenty of
can-
awesome zombie movies that we haven't mentioned. 'cause
Oh, there's a bunch
so
of
many.
there's zombie movies, and perhaps even I'd love it if you would email us at feedback@tv8mydinner.com and let me in on some zombie movies that are cool that I haven't mentioned, because I'm in on it, man. I'll do it.
Yeah, and we'll if you do, we'll give you a shout out. I promise.
We definitely will.
So feedback at tv8mydinner.com. As always, check out darkcrazy.com for stories and poetry and art and editorial stuff,
Editorial, where
Like
we have
the,
stuff like some more Perfect 10 lists
yeah.
that you can check out.
like the kind of stuff we went over tonight. We can find lots of those on the editorial page at darkcrazy.com. That's Sean's site, so go check it out. And as always, you can find these podcasts on tv8mydinner.com or on iTunes. Just search for TV
Yeah,
8
take
My
us through
Dinner.
iTunes. Like, surely that'll help our numbers if you download us through iTunes.
Just search for, what are we going to do?
You can search for Dark Crazy. You can search for TV8 My Dinner. You can search for Brooks Robinson or Sean Gilbert.
We're bringing you the
There's-
best in opiniontainment.
Opiniontainment, exactly.
All
I'll
right.
have to add that to our iTunes keywords. Just look for opiniontainment.
I'm not sure how to spell that. We'll figure it out. Like I said,
Yeah, we'll get that worked out
not,
for you
not,
next
not a lot of brains in this operation. So
Yeah.
thanks for listening. Check us out next week. Until then, I'm Brooks,
And I'm Sean.
and we'll see you later.
darkcrazy.com.